You know, most of you who have been around here for any length of time at all know that I have a very earth-based spirituality, that Mother Earth, Gaia, is very, very important to me. I use the word pagan. I feel very pagan at heart, but I also have a Christian heart. Jesus is one of my main two guys. So I've got the earth-based spirituality and my Christian heart all working together, all wrapped up in a Taoist perspective. My philosophy is Taoist because it's a both and philosophy, not an either or. That both can exist in the field at the same time, and so then I wrap it really all over in a big Buddhist blanket. But it all has truth. There's truth to be found everywhere, yes? And so what do those three traditions have in common? Earth-based practices, Christianity, and Taoism. Anybody want to take a guess at it? It is water. Water is central. Water is important. So today I want to weave a thread through these three traditions to see what water might teach us. You know, here's the mathematical equation for the day. Water equals life equals the Christ equals God equals the Tao. It's all the same thing. It's one big giant soup of belonging and being, and it all belongs together. So I'm going to use those words interchangeably today as a means of finding the water within ourselves, the God within ourselves, the Tao within ourselves in our connection with all that is. Søren Kierkegaard, the great Danish philosopher, once wrote this. Please read this with me. Faith is like floating in 70,000 fathoms of water. If you struggle, if you tense up and thrash about, you will eventually sink. But if you relax and trust, you will float. As a lover of water, you know, I don't need a sanctuary really to find the presence of God. You put me at the bottom of Yosemite Falls and I know that there's a power far greater than me operating. You put me into a lake or into a river or a crashing wave on the ocean, I know that something beautiful is happening in the world and I want to cooperate with it. But as one who has cooperated with waves and not cooperated with waves, I have a little bit to teach you. There's three things that water can teach us that are vitally important. Number one, it naturally buoys you up. In fact, I'm going to give you a hand gesture to do with me today. Water, say it with me, naturally buoys you up. It's what it does. If you cooperate it and you work with the elements and the laws of water, you will eventually float to the surface. It's doing it naturally. Those that are fighting it, and I have fought the ocean a number of times, end up in the sand with their face in the sand, buried deep. So those who cooperate with water are buoyed up because that's what water does. Those that cooperate with God are buoyed up because that's what God does. That's what the Tao does. That's what life does when we are in a place of partnership with life. The second thing is that water is always making its way to the ocean. That's what water does. No matter what part of the country you're in or the earth that you're in, water is making its way to the lowest place, which is the ocean. It's going home. This is what God does. I often use the metaphor of God as a river leading home to the ocean of perfection and goodness and wholeness and prosperity and health and well-being, all that we seek. That's what rivers do. That's what God does. The water does what water does. And the third thing is important to recognize that water can take any shape. Water takes the shape of the container you put it in. Ever notice that? I put it in a glass, it takes the shape of the glass. I put it in a bowl, it takes the shape of the bowl. This is what God does. This is what life does. The container of our consciousness is saying how we want God to show up. The container of what we are feeling and what we are thinking is bringing that divine essence of possibility and saying, this is the way I want to form God. And here's the thing about both the buoyancy, the coming home, and the container. The river does not care what you do with it. It does not care if you are cooperating with the laws or not. It is not a respecter of whether you are being pushed to the ground or you are being buoyed up, you are going home to the ocean or you're fighting the current. It does not care. The love of God that's all it knows, is to lead you and to guide you into the ocean of possibility, but it will not interfere if you choose to put it into a container that's small. I always like to say, are you going to the ocean with a thimble or a giant bucket? Or are you backing up a truck to fill it up? The universe is not a respecter of what you choose to come to the river with, to come to the ocean with. So God, or the Tao, as life is continually working in the direction of raising you up. Do this with me. Raising us up and leading us home. Say that with me. Raising us up and leading us home. It's what life does. Life is for us. Life is for you. Life is moving in the direction of your highest good, and so is God. And like the river, it does not care. God does not care if you are cooperating with the spiritual laws, using the laws of nature or not. It just does what it does based on the container that we are putting water into. Careful what you're thinking between your ears, because that's the container of where God is saying, okay, you want it, you get it. One of my favorite stories in the Bible, I love Peter. Peter is one of my favorite characters because the guy was a really screw-up. I can identify with him. He fell down and he got back up again. He shifted his perspective, he forgot, and then he remembered again. And one of the favorite stories is when he's on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus and Peter and all the disciples on the Sea of Galilee. Jesus is supposedly walking on water. Now, we know scientifically that that's not possible. So let's just come down to earth for a minute. But let's talk about the elements of water. Peter supposedly gets called out onto the water, and Peter sinks. This is much less a literal physical manifestation of someone walking on water and more a metaphorical teaching, a metaphysical teaching on where we are placing our focus, because our focus, where we're looking, where we're listening, where we're paying attention, is the container that water is filling, that God is filling, that life is filling. So what we have here is the rough waters are either going to buoy us up based on our perspective, or we're going to sink into the waves and the turbulence. Jesus, as the example on the Sea of Galilee, cooperated with the laws of spirit, the laws of water. He was floating. I don't think he was walking. I think he was actually floating, undisturbed by the waves, because he was working with the waves. Peter, on the other hand, gave his attention to the wind, to the turbulence, to the fear, and to the doubt, and to that which did not feel in his control. And guess what? Peter sank. From a Taoist perspective, one participated with the natural elements of the Tao, of life, of the earth, of water, and the other one did not. A Christian path would simply tell you the story reminds us of the importance of keeping our eyes rightly focused, our eyes single, as it says in the Bible. Where we place our attention is important. So repeat after me. Energy flows where attention goes. Together. Energy flows where attention goes. Science will teach us that energy, that's all we are, that's all we've ever been, that's all water is flowing in the direction of where we are looking. And we are the container that's forming where we are looking. Paul knew this. St. Paul. I don't go to St. Paul very often because I think he took Jesus' teachings and kind of twisted them a little bit. But I also identify with him because, like Peter, he was human. He struggled with his humanity, but he had some really good things to say in his letter to the people of Philippi, chapter 4. Let's read this together. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Have no anxiety at all, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. Then the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and minds. The peace that we seek is in the attitude that we bring to the planet, the focus that we bring to the planet. We are the veritable container to whether God is happening on earth or we are sinking into the waves and the winds and being consumed by them. Again, say after me, energy flows where attention goes. A focus on spiritual truth, like the focus of the water that knows only to go to the ocean. You focus on spiritual truth, you're getting to the ocean. Jesus, who focused on the Christ, who said over and over and over again, it's not me, it's not me, it's the essence within me, the Father within me, the Christ, the light that is within me. That's the water. That's the juice. And he said that water is in you. That essence and that spirit is in each and every person in this room, and those of you online as well, because I have not forgotten you. Last week, I shared about the birth of my granddaughter, Quinn. And I kind of went on a tangent, and I really wandered and sailed away all over the place. I'm going to stay close. But I mentioned the ache that my daughter felt as my granddaughter was being born, and it was not the Hollywood version of screaming and shouting and yelling and swearing. It was just a dull ache. The world as we see it today, just my assessment, you may agree with me, is in a dull ache. It doesn't know what's happening. We're on turbulent seas right now. The world, humanity is living on the Sea of Galilee. And it is vitally important that we understand that we are the container of what's going to happen tomorrow. We and our consciousness, our collective consciousness is going to determine where the water goes, where God goes, where life goes. Where we place our attention is going to determine in the midst of the moan and the pain and the difficulty and the fear and the trepidation. That's part of being human. Absolutely. We're not going to deny that. We're not going to try and push it away, but we're going to cooperate with the seasons of the earth, the seasons of a spiritual life. There are ups and there are downs, dark and light, and both are vitally important. The heaviness of what we are experiencing, let me call it gravity for a later point. The gravity of what we are experiencing right now can feel really heavy. Yes? Let's just get honest with each other. We're not denying that we're having a human experience, but there is a way to raise above it. First and foremost is where you're placing your attention. Where are you looking? Who are you listening to? What do you allow access to the laboratory of your veritable mind? Are we allowing our limited minds to rule with a Peter consciousness? Oh my God, help me, save me, somebody come in and rescue me. Or a Christ consciousness that says, I am floating above all of it. I am in the world, but I am not of the world. I'm allowing my consciousness to be a container for something more pure and beautiful. The Hebrew Scriptures, our Jewish brothers and sisters absolutely knew this. One of my favorite books in the Hebrew Scriptures is the book of Isaiah. Let's read what Isaiah had to say together. When you pass through waters, I will be with you. Through rivers, you shall not be swept away. When we lean into a power greater than ourselves individually and even greater than our collective humanity, we are buoyed up and we are called home. Do that with me physically and with your voice. We are buoyed up and we are called home. I'm asking this congregation to do that all day long, all week long, when you watch the news this week, to go, I'm above this because I am buoyed up by God and I am led home. That's what water does. That's what God does. That's what the Tao does. That's what the Christ does. That's what life does if we pay attention. There's something beneath the surface of the wind and the waves. The calm ocean is waiting for our attention to look and feel and cooperate with the laws of the ocean and the water. Water is mentioned 722 times in the Bible. More than faith, more than prayer, more than the word hope, and more than the word worship. 722 times. There might be something to pay attention to. In fact, if you read the book, it's in the first chapter and it's in the last chapter. Water is bookending life, bookending our spirituality. There might be something for us to look at when cooperating with water as the metaphor for God. But let's make it more personal. 75% of the earth's surface is covered with water. 70% of an adult's body is made up of water. And 85% of the adult brain is made up of water. There are those that accuse me of having a little more than 85% up there. But the reality is, it's what we are. It's what we are. God, water, essence, life. It's what's making up our physicality. It's what's making up our earth home. It's what's making up our common connection as earth beings. Organically, it might be a good idea to start paying attention to water and to start cooperating with water as the spiritual Savior. Not a man, but the water and the essence, the Christ essence that's underneath that I am likening to water today. Yes? Are you sure? Wait, there's more. Let me go to the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching, I mentioned that I have a Taoist perspective of my spirituality. It's all good. Peter is just as important to me when he sinks into the ocean in the Sea of Galilee as Jesus was floating on the top. The dark and the light must both be involved. This is what the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu has to say about water. Let's read this together. Do we have it there? There it is. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. We might want to pay attention. Back to my earlier equation, water equals God, equals the Tao, equals all of us, the I am. It's all one. Let's read that again, and I want you to put the name God in there instead of water. Together, nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as God. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. So many people are calling forth a warrior God. My God can beat up your God. And it's not working, folks. We're having warrior gods with swords, but that's exactly what Jesus said we weren't supposed to do. He said, put down the swords. This Hebrew scriptures said, we will turn our swords into plowshares. There is a great call to be more water-like, to be more yielding, to be more soft. And in our softness, anybody ever go spend some time in the Marietta River in Yosemite? You have granite. Granite is hard rocks, and I'm going to liken that granite to what the world is showing us today. It is hard. It is unbudging. It is unmoving. Yet the Marietta River, over time, it moves. It goes around the rock. It bumps into it, and there are beautiful caverns, beautiful caves. In fact, an entire valley that has been formed out of the power of water in its softness. Water in its gentility, water in its ability to know that it is more powerful than that which looks rigid. We are called to do that. We are called in this turbulent time on the Sea of Galilee of 2022 to be more water-like and to be the channel of God, but let's make it more personal. What was the name of God that they told us in the Hebrew Scriptures? I am. Talking to a burning bush. I am that I am. I want to change the words and read this and make it personal because this is the call of our humanity today. Together, nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as I am. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass me. Nothing can surpass me when I am water-like, when I am God-like, when I am Christ-like, when I am Buddha-like, when I am an expression of the Tao, moving in the direction of the ocean. No barrier will get in the way. And so many times we quit and we get tired, right? We just get tired. Water doesn't get tired. It just puts one moment in front of the next, in front of the next. It hits the granite and it goes around it, and eventually there's a cavern, a container for the peace that we're seeking. A container for the love that we are seeking. Chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching is used often to indicate the 7 virtues of water. This is where I want you to take notes. Those of you online, get a pen and paper out. This is the 8th chapter of the Tao Te Ching, and it gives us a prescription to how to be buoyant and to be led home. Say that with me. How to be buoyant and how to be led home. This is a great prescription. Again, chapter 8, for those of you who have the Tao Te Ching at home, it reads like this. The supreme good is like water. There's my equation. God, Tao, life, water. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It just does what it does. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. Here's where the prescription comes, and I'll review it. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. And when you are content to be simply yourself, and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you. So Lao Tzu is comparing water to these attributes. Let's break them down a little bit here today. My counsel about how to remain buoyant and be led home and to rise above the storms. Number 1, live close to the ground. What does that mean to you? It means humility. humble yourselves. You know, the ego is an awful big weight to carry around. Have you noticed that? And if you want to rise above in the buoyancy of the water, you got to dump some weight, you got to dump some density. And I think my ego is probably the densest thing on the planet. So we need to live humbly, simply, and recognize that I'm special just like everybody else. Just like everybody else. I am not the exception to the rules that we teach. I'm just one among many. And then in that recognition, I become part of the one, that is us. So live close to the ground, stay humble, and be buoyant. Say that with me. Stay humble and be buoyant. In thinking, this is the second instruction, keep to the simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid, talking again to the human ego to release some density and release some weight. Unburden yourself with the density and the complications of life where you are focusing your attention on what isn't working and what is not in your control. You are actually sinking to the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. And the time has come is to throw the anchor off a little bit and allow yourself to be buoyed up. So simplify life, be buoyed up, and be led home. Together, simplify life, be buoyed up, and be led home to the ocean. Number 3, be fair and generous. The second week in this series was the title, Be Benevolent, with the understanding that our kindness is necessary. Our compassion is necessary. That if you want to rise above the sea of what we see in the world today, we need to be a little bit more kind. Be benevolent, be kind, and become buoyant, and be led home. Say that with me. Become buoyant and be led home. We become water-like. 85% water. Yet we're letting the other 15% weigh us down. Let it go. Be fair and generous and kind. Number 4, in governing, don't try to control. In governing, don't try to control. I chose the opening song today very purposefully. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. Say that with me. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. We are in cooperation with the Tao. This is the Buddhist blanket I talked about. Unattached. I am unattached to the way you're supposed to show up based on my ego. And when I am attached, I sink to the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. When I can let go of control, I can become buoyant, and I am led home to the truth that has always been and always will be. Number 5, do what you enjoy. Teilhard de Chardin said that joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. If you're not enjoying life, you're sinking. Find something to be grateful for. Find something to be happy about. Find something to praise in your life. And when you do that, all right. All right. You are floating, brother. Be joyful. Smile a little bit more. Be buoyed up and be led home and rise above what the world, because not just for yourself, you're buoying up the entire world. You're not here by accident on earth at this time. The world needs your joy. Bring it. Number 6, be completely present. You know, when I think about water, if I'm really thirsty, I'm dehydrated. I'm not going to be thinking about the water that I had yesterday. It's of no good to me. I'm not going to be thinking about the water that I may be drinking tomorrow. I'm thirsty now. And so many people are living their spiritual path for the water that's coming at some point, making somebody else responsible for that water, or so consumed in the thinking that was the water of yesterday that we're not drinking the water that's right in front of us right now. Take a drink. The only place God exists is right here and right now. That's it. The only place the Tao is accessible to you is right here and right now. Look around and behold the face of God, the drink of water that is the community, the friendship, the family that's in here right now. That's why we come together, because this is a drink of water to just remind you that you're not defined by the water you had, the water that's coming, but the water that you are right now. 85%, 70% be buoyed up in community and then be led home. Take the drink and do it with me. Be buoyed up and be led home. Number 7, be simply yourself. We started this 4-week series with the talk, Be Bold. And we said that's not about the personality. It is about the essence of your soul. It is the essence of the Buddha, of you, of Michael, of Marie, of Patrice. It's the Christ, of John and Cynthia. It is the Christ. That's what you need to be bold about. Stop playing small and live as the light of the world. Live as the water in a very passive way. I'm just floating. I'm soft. I'm unyielding. But boy, am I going to get to the end of what I see is possible for the world and possible for my life. When I am that bold, living from that place, I am buoyed up and then I am brought home. I'm going to invite the band to come back up now. I was never much of a science guy. In fact, I used to joke that if I could have written a paper, an English paper about how much I hated physics and how much I hated chemistry, I would have gotten an A. Instead, I got a C. But I thought, science, what I'm talking about, these spiritual concepts also have a scientific basis. The gospel of science can prove it as well. And I called my friend Bill, and I totally confused him. And I said, Bill, help me make sure that my science isn't junk. And he says, well, you're on the right track. But so let me see if I can. Let's put that last slide up there. Gravity pulls us down. I asked you to remember that. The world as we know it today is a gravitational pull that's anchoring us, that's putting us down, and it is heavy and it is dense. We all agree on that? That's what gravity does. But displaced water from the object being placed in the water creates a counter energy, a buoyancy, or what's called an upthrust. Liken water to God. When we immerse ourselves in a spiritual reality that is not of this world, there is a counter energy to the weight of the world. The gravitational pull is outweighed by the upthrust. This is just physics, if I understand it correctly. And those of you who are, am I close, Bill? Am I getting closer? As we lessen the weight and the density of what we are carrying around in the container that water has taken, a limited consciousness, a limited view, a limited life, so dense, full of worry, full of fear, full of anxiety, full of conflict, full of duality, full of us and them, you and me, and separation. That is a dense, egotistical container that water is only going to let us sink to the bottom. We're too dense. And dense, in its wonderful metaphor, is stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. When we start releasing, and letting go, I'm only here for God, something magical happens in the pool, happens in the Sea of Galilee, happens in the river. We are buoyed up and we are taken home. But there has to be a letting go of that which does not belong in the field of truth. That which does not belong in the field of possibility, of God, of the Tao, of water. When we lay down that which, the little music maestro, when we lay down that which does not serve the heaviness of life is then released. And the natural laws of God buoy us up, then upthrust. And that's what we do here. When we gather in community and we drink the now water and we simplify all of these religious systems that have complicated what earth has been telling us and showing us forever, get in the water. Drink the water. That sounds like a cult, doesn't it? Drink the water. Drink of what the earth has been showing us since the beginning of time. I'm here to buoy you up and to take you home. God has said it since the beginning of time. I'm here to buoy you up and take you home, but you've got to offload some of the crap that you're holding. That's what we do here, and we remind each other. Joyfully, you might have some stuff you need to let go of. You might have some stuff that I need to let go of. Let's let go of it together and make this environment a little bit less dense, a little bit less weighty, and then feel like a beach ball trying to be held under the water. You can only hold it for so long, and you get tired, and all of a sudden, poof, the upthrust takes us to a higher place. Not a heaven when we're done here on earth, but a heaven that exists here on earth because we are walking on the Sea of Galilee, and we're not submerged in the Sea of Galilee. We're not only walking on water, but we are now walking as water. Go find some water. Roswell's got some great places to go put your feet in the water and feel your oneness with the earth. Feel your oneness with the Christ. Not Jesus, the Christ. Feel your oneness with Buddha. Not Siddhartha, but the Buddha. Feel your oneness with the divine Archimedes Principle. Archimedes said he was not a religious man, but he jumped out of a bathtub and said, I figured it out. The law of buoyancy is working, and there's so much information in that. Our job is to be in this world. We're going to have a gravitational pull, but it is not to be defined by it.